Alright guys, so today we're going to be going over my Civil War reenacting gear and equipment. All the basic pieces of uniforms and personal items, gear, all the basic pieces that I bring to reenactments and living histories with me. So, to start things off, over here we have the fatigue blouse, the 1858 fatigue blouse, or sack coat as it was known. And this one I originally got from Fall Creek about 4 years ago. Since then I've made some alterations to it, such as changing the buttons, altering the collar, and first of all the buttons that came with the coat, there we go, the buttons that came with the coat, the eagle was raised off the button, was much more pronounced than the originals were. I have two original eagle buttons from the Civil War, and looking at them and comparing them to the buttons, the eagle was much more raised off the button than the originals were. So I wanted to try and find a button or buttons that had a flatter eagle design, and I found these ones, and I forget where I got these buttons, but the volume, we'll say, of the eagle coming off the button is much, much closer to the originals than the ones that originally came with the coat, and those are the ones that are on there now. And the other thing is the collar. The collar, when I got it, was more of a right-angled kind of a thing. It was a farbier collar. The originals had this very shortcut collar that you see here, so I changed that. And after years of wear, it is collected quite the patina and looks beautiful now, as does all the other things I've been wearing for a long time. And those other things are the trousers here, which are also Fall Creek, and I got at the same time as the sack coat, so I've had them for about 4 years. And I haven't done any alterations to them. The only thing is that after a time of them being worn, I've had to put a couple patches on them. I've had to patch the knees, and I've had to patch the butt area. I did that earlier this past year, or last year I think, but because it was just getting way too thin. How I had to patch the knees is they eventually just ripped right through. You can see it's a slightly different wool than what originally was on there, but it works. And then the personal items, or little trinkets, we have on the trousers, which, actually, hold on. I just have one more thing to point out about the trousers, and that is the suspenders that are on the trousers. These are what are known as poor boy suspenders. They're just made of a cotton ticking material, and they're just a one button deal, but I made these myself, and they're a nice, simple, authentic type of suspenders that I had to spend, I think, about $5 for antique ticking at an antique store. So they're real nice and pretty strong. But yeah, that was just the last thing on the trousers. But anyway, the little trinkets, little pile of things we see on the trousers. The top piece you see there is a bundle of federal money. I think it's about $35 there, which is a decent amount for any common federal soldier to be carrying around in his pocket. And under that, on the left, you see a candle stub, which I'm not sure why that's in there, but it just is. And then next to that, on the right, is a pin with a picture of General Sickles, General Daniel Sickles, in the middle of it. And why I got that, I honestly don't even know why I got that. I got it because we were doing a tintype at the time, and 28th Massachusetts was in the Irish Brigade, and the Irish are noted for being some fairly fierce fighters. You might even say kind of crazy at times. And Daniel Sickles was certainly a crazy guy. So we were getting the tintype done. I kind of bought that, but it was way too expensive for its own size. And you can kind of see better. But it's a cool little trinket, you know, that I kind of carry around for really no reason these days. Yeah. And then under that, you see two brown wooden buttons. And that's an interesting story with those. There was this battle scenario where we went to raid the Confederate wounded, and this one kid said, "Take out a pocket knife and cut off my two bottom buttons." And I said, "You sure?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I cut them off, and he said, "You can just keep those. It's a fun scenario for both of us." And I was like, "Alright, cool." And yeah, so it's a fun little story behind those. I just kind of carry in my pocket for good luck, we'll say. And then the pocket knife you see down there is just a regular carpenter's pocket knife. I'm not sure how authentic it is, but I like it. It's got 3 different blades, and there's a nice wooden handle on there. Monkey matchbox, nothing too special about that. Just a, you know, period label for a matchbox. You can make them and whatever. Also, lucifers you can do also. Brogans. These ones I've had for a while. Pretty worn in. You can see on the bottom of them. See on the bottom of them, they're starting to wear through, little holes, soles coming apart, that kind of thing. This one's not too bad, but they're pretty well worn in, and they look real good for a campaigner impression. So it's good. And wool socks. Nothing too special about those. They're knit wool, 100%, that kind of thing. Up here, we have my 2 forge caps. The one on the left is what's referred to as a McDowell brim or a McDowell cap. Reason for that type of forge cap being called that is because it was a style that really appealed to General Irwin McDowell, and he kind of popularized the style, so they ended up naming it after him. It's a shorter cut brim, as you can kind of see there, and it was the issue cap to the 28th Massachusetts, and you can see we have our hat brass on there with the 2nd Corps badge, which I'm going to be having to take off soon since we're going back to 1861 this year. And then on the right is just a standard 1858 flat brim forge cap, which I use at times when we're not being the 28th. We have to portray a different regiment that did not have McDowell brims. And then just a regular civilian shirt, which this is one of my more favorable civilian shirts. It's a nice low-cut collar style, and it's just a nice shirt. It's probably one of my favorites out of a few dozen that I have. Cotton drawers. This is one pair of a couple that I have. Even though you would think it's more hot because it's just more layers to wear under the wool trousers, it's actually nice because as opposed to wearing boxers and having the wool rub up against your thighs, which is very uncomfortable, as any of you reenactors would know, or maybe you would, maybe you don't. If you have lining in your pants, that's not a problem, but I don't, and these work really well for that. And they're not very long. They're a shorter style, so they're not quite as hot as others would be, and they're just really comfortable to wear. And they keep you a little bit warmer at night. And then up here, we have my Federal double bag knapsack, which carries all kinds of stuff. I've had to make a couple repairs to this since I got it. It's from Fall Creek. Would not recommend getting a knapsack from them because the oil paint on it does not hold up the best. And yeah, so I'd say probably you'd be better off getting it from, say, Missouri Boot and Shoe, or Blockade Runner makes pretty good knapsacks. But Fall Creek is not the best. Or Regimental Quartermaster, I think theirs are pretty similar. Canteen. Now, I'll do a separate video about canteens because there's a lot to be said about them, and different couple misconceptions about the styles of canteens and covers and that all kind of thing. But basically, the one you see before you is a smooth side canteen as opposed to the bullseye style. It has a brown blanket cover on it, or jean wool cover, which came after they decided they couldn't use the light blue and dark blue wool materials for the covers. They switched to this because it was a cheaper, easier approach to the problem. And an early war leather canteen strap, brown, which was an issue canteen strap. The black leather ones were private purchase items, and the cotton canteen straps was a late war amenity. Those were issued later in the war because they couldn't produce the leather ones anymore. So if you enlisted in 1864 or late 1863, you would have gotten a canvas canteen strap, not a leather one. So, yeah. Items next to the canteen. Thing on the left is a notebook that I have. I write a few different, kind of period journal entries in there once in a while. And I keep some pictures in there, a medical identification tag that was given to us by the recreated Sanitary Commission. Just a cool little thing. I keep it in there because I haven't used it yet. I don't know that I ever will. But that's pretty much all I keep in there. Usually I have a whittled down pencil that I keep somewhere, but that I think finally got lost this past year. And then on the right you see my kind of hygiene kit. I got some tooth powder on the top, a wooden comb, and then a wooden toothbrush, which, nothing too special about them. And under it you see the poke sack that I keep all of it in, and those usually wind up in my knapsack. Under that is my mess kit, or what part of my mess kit. Top is my canteen half, which I use as my plate, and it's pretty well broken in. It's got some charring on it, a little bit of rust, but rust and grime is fiber, as I like to say. Dirt is fiber. And then below it is my tin cup, which is also pretty well seasoned. You can see, does not have nearly the amount of shine as the canteen half, because I use my cup way more than I do my canteen half. So it's practically black. It's mostly charring and dirt on there, a little bit of rust, and it may look semicircular from here, but I guarantee you it is not. It's got quite a few nice dents in it from being bounced around my haversack the past few years. But it's nice and I love it. My utensils, knife, fork, spoon, pretty sure you can tell which is which. Stainless steel, not the best. I would recommend getting either the steel ones or the tin ones, because stainless steel was not around in the 1860s, obviously. And under is just kind of the poke sack that I use for grabbing stuff out of the fire or keeping rations in, that kind of thing. I have more poke sacks, but that's just one of them that just kind of lives in my haversack. And next to it, you kind of see my haversack strap there. It's been hemmed, as it would be. So that's the kind of thing that it would have been hemmed later in the war, once they knew that they were gonna have, they were gonna have this item in their possession for a long time. They would have went from the knot to just stitching it up, more of a permanent adjustment, tailoring it to them.